Well, you know what they say about rumors.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Well, that is unless they're true.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
So if this huge aviation rumor is true, and I hope it is, this could be the biggest game changer in commercial aviation since the Boeing Airbus duopoly was born over 50 years ago. We talk about it next on Maximus.
You are watching Maximus Aviation.
So the big two, Airbus and Boeing, are both struggling right now, albeit for different reasons. Boeing is just a mess. And the last we heard from CEO Dave Calhoun, they won't even be considering a new plane until well into the 2030s at least. And Airbus is struggling, but in the best way possible. They're struggling to sell so many aircraft on the back of Boeing struggles that they have a 10-year order backlog of deliveries to airlines. So between the two, you have a power vacuum, a void where airlines around the world are hungry for new aircraft to replace their aging fleets. And that's where Brazilian aerospace and defense manufacturer Embraer comes in. Embraer is already the third largest commercial aircraft maker in the world, and they are the leading producer of smaller regional jets with a capacity of around 120 seats on most variants. However, its newest jet has already started encroaching into Boeing and Airbus range with the E195, which can carry over 145 passengers. It's also a serious player in the business jet segment, competing with Bombardier and Gulfstream. Okay, so then what makes me think Embraer is ready to enter the big leagues? Well, earlier in May, the Wall Street Journal was the first to announce that according to sources inside Embraer, they were studying options for a new mid-size aircraft that would compete directly with Boeing's MAX and Airbus's A321s. The discussions within the company are said to be in the early stages, but they should have a decision by the end of next year. You know, there's another term for a leak like this, and I think they call it a trial balloon. However, Embraer has officially played down the Wall Street Journal report that it is studying a new jet to compete directly with Boeing and Airbus, saying it has no plans for a major cycle of spending. In a statement, Embraer told Reuters, Embraer certainly has the capability to develop a narrow-body aircraft. However, we have a young and very successful portfolio of products developed in recent years, and we are really focused on selling those products and making Embraer bigger and stronger. We don't have any plan for a sizable cycle of capital expenditures at this time. You may remember back in 2020, Boeing was set to acquire Embraer's commercial airplane division. At the time, Boeing was interested in Embraer mainly for access to lower-cost engineers and new manufacturing options. But in April of 2020, at the last minute, Boeing pulled out of the $4.2 billion deal to buy Embraer faster than Bill Clinton's cigar, which resulted in a bitter and ongoing feud between Embraer and Boeing. But according to Lehem News earlier in May, Embraer presented its first quarter 2024 showing revenues for the period up 25% and deliveries up 67% on the year. Embraer's firm order backlog now stands at $21.1 billion, its highest point over the past 7 years. That was helped by the firm order from American Airlines for 90 E175 jets, plus purchase rights for 43 more. Also for 2024, Embraer expects to deliver between 72 and 80 commercial aircraft, compared to 64 in 2023. Liam said revenues totaled $897 million in the quarter, an increase of 25% versus the previous year. So financially, Embraer is in the best shape it could possibly be. However, launching a new single-aisle plane to compete with Airbus and Boeing will require additional revenue from potential future investors. So, should Embraer embark on such an ambitious venture? Well, fortunately for us, the folks over at AirInsightGroup.com make the case both for and against such a risky or profitable move. And as Addison Schoenland points out, the biggest obstacle facing Embraer is risk management. With Boeing's next aircraft program valued at $30 billion on the low side and $50 billion on the high end, Air Insight thinks that Embraer's cost structure could allow it to develop a new mid-sized program at a lower number than that. Additionally, airlines and leasing companies alike would love to see some new blood shake up the Boeing-Airbus duopoly. They even think Boeing and Airbus should also welcome the competition, saying that Airbus would face a far more stable market environment if Boeing were not so unstable. Additionally, the supply chain would equally be happier to have more market stability. The more competitive the market, the sharper all players must be. And Sholin says that ultimately works in everyone's favor. After all, he says, who loses? Which I agree with. But even though Boeing is on the ropes right now, it's still a huge company with vast resources. The problem at Boeing isn't tech or talent, but rather the culture created by decades of mismanagement. And for Airbus, well, they're just fine in this equation. But for Embraer to compete with the big boys, it needs to move into the duopoly turf. He says aerospace is nasty, it's a no-holds-barred market, and Airbus and Boeing's reaction can be expected to be brutal, he said. He recalled that Airbus saw the threat of Bombardier C-Series, not Boeing. But Embraer saw it too and took its time to develop the E2, which shows Embraer has the strategic ability to pivot and defend its turf. The key comes down to financing for Embraer. If it can assemble capital from patient investors, it can move forward with much less risk. Sholin brings up the fact that Saudi Arabia has very deep pockets and wants to prepare for an oil-dependent future. He says it's easy to imagine aerospace IPs created by Brazil and Saudi Arabia and other partners. Okay, but really quick before I get to that, don't skip ahead, it won't take long. It's something cool, I think. I just want to take a second to thank all of you who support the channel through our merch shop and Buy Me a Coffee apps. Unfortunately, we can't all be Mr. Beast YouTube billionaires, but your kindness is always appreciated. But now the company that runs Buy Me a Coffee has rolled out a new feature where I can reply to you with a personal video, which I think is pretty cool. So just a little extra benefit if you'd like to help support what we do. But always, the best and free way to support the channel is simply hit that little red subscribe button. And also, while you're there, you can give us a like if you do. Okay, so the pros and cons of Embraer taking on the big boys, starting with the pros. There has never been a better time for such a move. The duopoly has a backlog that is between 7 and 10 years out. The supply chain that supports the duopoly is stressed. Comac and Russia's United Aircraft Corporation can't move into the market demand and supply gap. Only Embraer has the experience, IP, and ability to enter the gap. The best example of its ability to go bigger is their cargo variant, the C390, which competes with the C130. Embraer has a superb record of on-budget and on-time program development. Embraer is less dependent on the industry supply chain as it builds more of its parts internally. Without a track record in the market, Embraer could buy into the business with a lower initial return of investment. And the final pro is that the competing designs of Boeing and Airbus began operating in 1967 and 1989 with older DNA than a fresh, clean sheet design. Okay, and now for the cons. Embraer would need to access about $30 billion to develop such an aircraft. The Air Current reports that Japan is interested in investing in the company. Embraer would need to upsize its workforce significantly. Time is the next big hurdle. Can Embraer go from computer screen to test aircraft within 5 years? And if it could, what market segment would it aim for? The single-aisle sweet spot has moved from 150 to 180 seats, essentially a 757-sized model, perhaps with 180 and 210 seats. These aircraft require first-class support. Embraer has some exposure to big airlines as opposed to regionals, but selling a plane to a top-tier carrier is risky for both. Yet Embraer got a shout-out from America's CEO, and they already sell to KLM, Singapore Airlines, and other top-tier airlines. Embraer may need lower prices than Airbus or Boeing, as the existing duopoly can squeeze it with their deals, and Embraer's entry into the market could spur one or both duopoly players to invest in a new narrow-body program to improve their competitiveness. And in conclusion, quoting from this outstanding Air Insight discussion, despite the risks of duopoly reaction and the market risks, there has never been a better time than now for Embraer to break out from its current market position as a top-tier regional aircraft maker. The C390 proves it can go bigger. The company must move forward while the future is somewhat muddled for the duopoly. Addison Sholin closes by simply saying, the time to act is now. And I have to say, I think he's spot on. And not only that, but I think the chances are highly likely that Embraer is actually going to do this. What about you? Do you think Embraer would, could, can, and should take on the big boys? Be sure to let me know down below. Until next time, yeah. This is Maximus.